Hi guys.
Hello.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Garrett.
This is the dead spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're back again.
Yeah.
It's draft day.
Yeah. So we're doing this real quick before we got to pick our football teams.
Happy football.
Yep, football. I don't watch college, but I think his name's Travis Hunter. He was all over the place yesterday for the Colorado Buffaloes. I think it was Deion Sanders' first game as head coach. How do you feel about that?
I honestly don't feel a certain way.
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know what else is going on here.
I don't know. Let's just get into it. I don't have anything to talk about.
Okay.
Do you? Happy Labor Day.
So, yeah, for those of you that...
Happy Labor Day to us that have to work on Labor Day.
Yeah. Well, not me, but I didn't have a choice, so...
It's the only news I got.
Okay. So, today we'll talk about Josef Mengele. And I don't know if I should put that cool German accent on there or not. It sound... Josef Mengele? So I don't know
if you want to.
If you've ever heard about the Holocaust and Nazis, they're pretty bad people.
I've heard about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. On March 16, 1911, Josef Rudolf Mengele was born in Günzburg, a town in Bavaria, Germany, to parents Walburga and Karl Mengele. How am I doing so far?
Good.
Walburga. Josef was the eldest of the bunch, and he had two younger brothers, Karl Jr., not to be confused with the fast food joint Carl's Jr., and Alois. Josef and his brothers were brought up in a Catholic household, and Patriarch Karl Sr. founded the Karl Mengele and Sons Company in 1907, which was a foundry that produced farm equipment for milling, sawing, and baling. So I don't know if you ever watched any movies or documentaries about especially 1940s Germany, or whatever back then. But there's a lot of farms and stuff, so...
I haven't.
There's a lot of farming equipment and whatnot to push out to those people out there.
Okay.
Due to its success and impact throughout Günzburg, the Mengele family were a very affluent family, and to this day, a main road in Günzburg is named after Karl, and Mengele still remains a common surname throughout the area. When Josef was only a few years old, the First World War began in 1914, and Karl left to fight in the German military. So Walburga was left to raise children on her own, as well as keep the business afloat, which she successfully did, as she reached an agreement with the German military to turn production from farming equipment to production of military vehicles to be used on the front lines.
Well, you know what Beyonce says? Who runs the world?
Walburga.
Who runs the world?
Walburga.
Girls.
Walburga. Due to even greater success and expansion of the family business after the end of World War I, the wealth of the Mengele family provided Josef the means to pursue a higher level of education. Josef Mengele was described by those who knew him as a serious student with obvious intelligence and a good friend to many throughout his pursuit of education with an interest in music, art, and skiing. Because in addition to a lot of farms...
Does it snow in Germany?
Yeah, his this town that they grew up in was, I forget exactly how far, but not far from the German Alps, the mountains.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, get some snow up there, so...
For some reason, I just feel like it never snows there.
Oh, it does.
Side note, did you see that it's already been snowing in the Swiss Alps?
I don't keep up with the Swiss Alps.
I saw like a video on Twitter or something, and it was like a blizzard, and people are like, "Yay! I can't wait for snow."
Well, it's coming here soon, so...
Blech.
Yeah, blech. I mean, I don't like the really hot, but... You know I like snow.
Blech.
Ugh, okay. After graduating high school in April 1930 with less than stellar grades, he considered becoming a dentist, as there were no dentists in their town. So he would, fill a need in the town and probably have a good operation there, but he felt as though that practice was too specific. He opted to pursue medicine instead, focusing on anthropology and genetics. In October 1930, he moved to Munich, the capital of Bavaria, at the same time that a little group known as the National Socialist German Workers' Party was rising to power, a.k.a. the Nazis.
I was going to say a.k.a. Hitler.
The Nazis. In early 1931, Mengele joined the Stahlhelm, or Steel Helmet, organization. Stahlhelm was named after the steel helmets that were worn by the German military during the First World War and was the paramilitary wing of the German National People's Party. You got all that?
I got it.
Do you know what paramilitary... Oh, my God.
Paramilitary?
Yeah.
Does that mean like a branch of the military?
Paramilitary means that it's an organization whose structure and function are similar to a proper military, but operate as special forces that a country's military or police are unwilling to handle.
So it's like a parallel of the military?
So it's kind of like a well-regulated militia. You know what I mean? They'll, like, take care of things that an actual military wouldn't. So, like, domestically.
So they're like...
Kind of like National Guard would be a paramilitary.
Okay.
You know? Stuff like that. The German National People's Party was formed in 1918 after Germany's defeat in World War I as the major conservative and nationalist party under the Weimar Republic and strongly opposed the Treaty of Versailles, a peace treaty that ended the war between Germany and most of the Allied powers, which many Germans within the National People's Party viewed as a national disgrace. Because they felt like, as Germans, like they're not being respected properly as a country and, you know, this and that, and they just were unhappy with their place in the world of politics.
Yeah, well, isn't that why Hitler was able to rise to power so easily?
Well, partially. So in 1929 was the Great Depression, if you've heard about it.
Yeah, I've heard.
So instead of just ruining America's economies all around the world were affected, and countless people throughout Germany lost their jobs and life savings, and by effect, support for communist and Nazi parties within Germany exploded.
Exploded.
So it was between, like, you know, people losing all their money and hyperinflation, kind of what it feels like right now.
I was going to say, you mean now?
So, you know, they start preaching all this stuff about, I mean, this is where the anti-Jewish stuff came out, blaming them for all their problems, as they did. So then people got behind that and were like, yeah, this guy, he's gonna bring Germany back to prominence and whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's why a lot of people started getting behind these movements. While on his path of education aiming to achieve a doctorate, Mengele also worked as a practicing medic during the mid-1930s. The German National People's Party would then be absorbed by the Sturmabteilung,
Whatever that means.
Abbreviated to SA, which translates to Assault Division, in 1934. During this time, Josef Mengele had to withdraw his involvement with the group as he had claimed to be suffering from some type of kidney ailment, but this allowed him more time to focus on his studies. The Sturmabteilung, also known as Stormtroopers or Brown Shirts, if you're familiar.
No.
Okay. Was founded by an Austrian painter in 1921 as a paramilitary outfit that utilized violent intimidation in the aforementioned Austrian painter's rise to power.
Austrian painters rise to power.
Yeah, he was a painter, in case you didn't know. The term brown shirts was due to the fact that, well, they wore brown uniforms that were inspired by fascist dictator Benito Mussolini's black shirts in Italy. The SA protected party meetings, marched in rallies, assaulted political opponents, and intimidated voters in local and national elections.
Oh.
Most of their street violence was aimed towards the Jewish population and any opposition to the Nazi ideology. So they're starting to rough people up now and take power by force.
I just don't understand how you go from, like, being an army medic to being a horrible person.
Well, we'll get to that. Ernst Röhm took leadership of the SA in 1931, who dreamed of implementing it as Germany's main form of military. So again, right now they're operating separate from the proper military and just using that to be violent, to push their agenda and, start to gain support and power and whatnot.
But this is the Nazi party, right?
Right. It is estimated that under Röhm's leadership, membership of the SA grew to 400,000 by 1932 and possibly 2 million by the time the Austrian painter gained power in 1933.
Wait, so Hitler was an Austrian painter?
He was born in Austria. He wasn't even German properly.
Huh.
So.
I don't know why that all just clicked.
So yeah, I was just going to mention, in case you hadn't figured out, the Austrian painter that I've mentioned.
Yeah, that's why I was like, are we talking about Hitler?
Adolf Hitler is the Austrian painter. It's just an alias I use when I talk about him, which is all the time
Often.
apparently. Not in bad ways. It's just all very fascinating to me, and I like to learn things and watch things about World War II. I'm a World War II dad without being a dad.
Yep.
One of those guys.
It's true.
Anyway, the seizure of power ended the previous reign of the Weimar Republic and began the era of the single-party Third Reich. Right?
That was really good.
Thanks. Mengele earned a Ph.D. in physical anthropology from the University of Munich in 1935 after his completion of a thesis titled Racial Morphological Research on the Lower Jaw Section of 4 Racial Groups, in which he concluded that it was possible to determine the race of a person simply by studying the shape of their lower jaw.
I feel like no.
Now, it sounds kind of racist, doesn't
Kind
it?
of.
But his arguments within the thesis were based solely in science, and the lack of overt anti-Semitism or racism in his findings may suggest that he had not yet been radicalized by the Nazi ideology he soon would be. So basically, he's just comparing, different people from around the world and what the shape of their skull looks like.
So he's not part of the Nazi party yet.
Not exactly. So, yeah, so he was just using scientific explanations as a part of this, not experiment, but report, thesis, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's not saying, black people look like this and Jewish people look like this.
But
and
is this a paper that Hitler's actually, let's exterminate all the Jews?
I mean, I don't think it was that simple, but no, Hitler's already doing his thing.
He's already trying to do that.
Well, like I mentioned before, when he's starting to...
You just said they were, taking things by force.
When he's starting to gather up his support and everything, that's where the, anti-Jewish stuff started, by blaming them for all their problems.
Maybe it's just crazy to me, because I just don't see how something like that would happen today.
Well...
But then again, there's a lot of things I didn't see happening today that have happened.
Yeah. So, you know what they say.
It happens?
Don't. Well, what is it? Those who don't pay attention to history are doomed to repeat it, or whatever, however it goes.
Yeah, well, I think it's happening, since we're going backwards in time.
Yeah, well.
Anyway.
He then continued on to pursue postdoctoral work as a research assistant at the Third Reich Institute for Heredity, Biology, and Racial Purity at the University of Frankfurt in 1937. It was at this very same institute that Mengele crossed paths with Dr. Ottmar Freier von Verschier, a Nazi-affiliated eugenicist. Eugenics is a set of beliefs and practices with the goal of improving gene pools of a human population. Dr. von Verschier was regarded as a pioneer in the study of genetics of identical and fraternal twins. Remember that for later.
Oh, I know where this is going to go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That same year, in 1937, Josef Mengele officially applied to join the Nazi Party and was accepted. Yay!
Yay!
When he was accepted, his member number, so they all got a number,
was his 666. Like the devil.
No. His member number
was...
was
69?
Oh, my God. No.
Well, amount of numbers. 420?
No. His member number was 574,974. So there's over 5,500,000 members
Jesus.
at this point. The following year, Mengele applied for a position within the Schutzstaffel in 1938.
Wow, that sounded really German.
Simply known as the SS, to which he was also accepted. It's also fun to say, but not a fun group. Schutzstaffel.
I mean, it sounds like you say it often since you said that with no issue.
Oh, I listened to a bunch of things about it, so I learned. The SS was founded in 1925 by Adolf Hitler as a group of 300 personal bodyguards that expanded to 50,000 members by the time Hitler took office 8 years later in 1933, thanks to Heinrich Himmler, who commanded the SS from 1922 until 1945. The SS differed from the SA stormtroopers, aka brown shirts, because unlike the SA, the SS was under Hitler's complete control and were designated by the lightning bolt-shaped insignia on their black uniforms. So this is probably what you would think of when you hear the term Nazi, like this uniform, this look, black uniforms with the red armband that featured a black swastika inside of a white circle, the iron eagle patches, medals,
What is that?
pins, the skull and crossbones, etc.
But what was the lightning bolt?
It's the SS logo.
Oh.
So they're kind of lightning bolt shaped. Somebody had to create these clothes, right?
Yes.
The German clothing factory that pumped out thousands of these uniforms meant to intimidate and spread fear would eventually become what we know it today as Hugo Boss.
No.
Yeah.
Not that I shop there, so I can't afford it.
No.
Or clothes that are made for me, but come on.
Well, you know, if you look into Nazi type shit like this, like Volkswagen did a lot for them, you know, other German things at the time, you know, like things you wouldn't think of today as
So
being
I don't
involved.
drive a German car.
But again, like,
I drive a Japanese car.
yeah, same. But again, it's like they just thought they were doing what was best for the country. You know what I mean? So they didn't.
I mean, I guess, but I don't know how
They didn't know-
exterminating a whole group of people is best for the country.
Well, they didn't know it was gonna. They didn't even. A lot of them didn't even know that was happening. A lot
How?
because they kept it hidden away from everybody. They
But,
took-
like, wasn't it, like, posted around towns and stuff?
well, like anti-Jewish stuff and all this, but it wasn't like, hey, when we take them out of here, we're taking them to camps and we're gonna force them to work to death or just kill them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's not something you go around advertising, but I figure, like, somebody's got to be spreading this news that it's happening.
Well, because these camps are like army barracks and stuff like that. So, like, they're away from, like, towns and cities. I'll get to it. That's why they had to bring people via train to Auschwitz. You know? Because they were so far away. They didn't just walk around the corner, you know?
Yeah, I know, but once you start seeing that, like, like, Jewish stuff, wouldn't you be, like, a little concerned? Like, especially if you have friends that are Jewish?
Well,
Like,
yeah.
hey, man, you should probably get out of here.
Well, I mean, you know, there's some stories like that. But, you know, again, these Germans, they're sick of their place in the world. They feel like they're being put down and, you know, they're not respected as a country or as people. And then they blame a group of people for their problems. And they're like, yeah, get them the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? The SS were considered to be the purest of all Germans. By themselves, of course.
I was gonna say, what makes them more pure than somebody else? You know what? It's fine, just keep going.
The SS consisted of two subunits, the Allgemeine SS and the Waffen SS, both of which combined totaled approximately 250,000 members by 1939. The Allgemeine SS was the General SS, who dealt with local policing and racial matters, and also included the infamous Gestapo, while the Waffen SS was the armed SS, comprised of three main groups: Hitler's personal bodyguards, Death's Head battalions, and disposition troops. Have you heard me say SS enough yet?
Yes, and I also feel like I'm gonna need, like, a chart,
Well,
because I'm not gonna remember all this.
you don't really have to remember all this, but while working alongside Dr. von Verschier, Mengele helped to write reports for courts held by the Nazi state to judge German Jews who were accused of violating the Nuremberg laws. A couple years before his official acceptance into the Nazi Party, on September 15, 1935, Nazi Germany announced two new laws: the Reich Citizenship Law and the Law for the Protection of German Blood and German Honor. So these are the Nuremberg laws. The Reich Citizenship Law was to ensure that only people of German or related blood could become proper citizens, meaning that Jews were defined as a separate race and therefore had no political rights in Germany. The Law for the Protection of German Blood and German Honor is mostly self-explanatory, but it was essentially a law against race mixing that banned marriages and sexual relations between pure, quote-unquote, Germans and those viewed as lesser races in order to preserve the purity of the German race. So, they're taking people's rights away. Mm-hmm. While the Nuremberg laws were primarily focused on Jews and the ongoing dehumanization of them, these laws also applied to Roma, aka Gypsies, black people, and any of their descendants. Okay, so a little bit of irony considering Dr. Mengele and his involvement with enforcing these Nuremberg laws. During his medical schooling, he had met a woman named Irene Schonbein, whom he planned to marry. As an active member of the SS, and due to the Nuremberg laws, he had to prove that Irene was of, quote, pure blood. While he was successfully given the Nazis' blessing to wed this young lady, as she was, quote, very Nordic in her ways, it could not be proven whether or not her lineage had any trace of Jewish blood. Therefore, due to these laws affecting descendants of the groups regarded as less than, their only child, Rolf, was not granted German citizenship.
But, like, I thought once you're born in a country, like, you're a citizen. Or is that, like, just here?
I'm not entirely sure. That is here. I forget what it's called exactly. But, again, that's why one of these Nuremberg laws took that right away from people. Well, if they were, like, mixed or had less than pure German blood, they couldn't be proper citizens. Mengele had enlisted to join the fight alongside the military in the late 1930s, but the previously mentioned kidney issue flared up, and he had to resign his service until 1940, where he then served with the Waffen-SS as a sub-lieutenant until he was wounded in action in 1942. After his brief military career ended, he transferred to the SS Race and Resettlement Office in Poland, where he was tasked with using SS criteria to determine whether or not those who claimed to be of German descent were physically and racially suitable to qualify as such. So, we're starting to get more discriminating.
Yeah, you see that. I mean, if the office is called Race and Resettlement, I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
And then he gets to decide and, well, based on SS criteria, decides if they're physically and racially suitable. So, it was also at this time Mengele was reunited with his old friend, Dr. von Verschier, and was then promoted to the rank of SS captain in April 1943. Benito Mussolini in Italy aligned themselves with the Austrian painter in Nazi Germany in 1941. As a part of their alliance, there was a proposed campaign to take over northern Africa and take control of the Suez Canal. After doing so, the Nazis would relocate the Jewish population of Germany to live in Madagascar, in effectively a large open-air prison type of environment. So, they had planned to do that, but the campaign was unsuccessful. They were unable to capture control of the Suez Canal, so that put an end to that idea. So, another solution was proposed. It's the final solution. Have you heard?
The final solution? Death?
The final solution to the Jewish question was to be the newest plan to eradicate European Jews, simply referred to today as the final solution. European Jews were to be forcefully rounded up and dispersed across a network of concentration camps across Europe that already existed since World War II began. Those deemed as able-bodied would be sent to perform slave labor in these camps to produce German war materials, while the others would simply be systematically executed. On May 30th, 1943, Dr. Josef Mengele was assigned to work as a camp physician at perhaps the most well-known and infamous of these camps, Auschwitz. Auschwitz was originally used as a Polish army barracks before Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, when it was then converted into a complex of concentration and extermination camps by the Nazi SS and would be an integral piece of their final solution. In total, there were over 40 camps within the expansive Auschwitz complex and 3 main camps. Auschwitz I, the main camp that features the infamous entrance gate with the German phrase Arbeit macht frei.
Is that what we saw when we went to the Holocaust Museum?
Yeah, but I mean, everything in there was pretty much
Not
a
the real
recreation.
one. Yeah.
But, and this translates to work sets you free.
Mm-hmm. Sure it does.
Doesn't
set me free.
You know, I mean, we get paid. Auschwitz II, Birkenau, with the also well-known gatehouse structure and train tracks, where hundreds of thousands of prisoners were transported there with no food, no water, and no bathroom facilities via train cars that were so cramped inside. Survivors recalled that those who had died while en route to the camps would be held upright by the other people jammed inside. Auschwitz III, Monowitz, was a labor camp for IG Farben, a chemical and pharmaceutical conglomerate. Their products included synthetic dyes, polyurethane, chloroquine, and most horrific of all, Zyklon B, the poison gas that was used in the gas chambers. 1 ton of Zyklon B poison gas was enough to exterminate approximately 300,000 people. Between 1942 and 1944, the volume ordered by Auschwitz totaled 23 tons, which would have been enough to kill 6.9 million people. When Josef Mengele arrived for his new assignment at Auschwitz, about 140,000 prisoners were already being held within the high barbed wire fences and barracks. He also arrived at the same time of a typhoid outbreak at the camp. The Zyklon B gas was first used here to delouse the clothing of incoming prisoners, as lice carried the typhoid disease. After the inmates were stripped of their clothing and possessions, their hair was also shaved off to combat the lice. The cramped conditions of the train cars carrying infectious people rapidly spread this and other diseases, such as scarlet fever, throughout the camp. So instead of just treating those people,
Yeah, heaven forbid.
like a doctor would, or is
Even
supposed
though he's supposed to be a doctor.
So instead of treating them like a proper doctor, who had the aforementioned illnesses, he instead ordered them to the gas chamber and just got rid of them immediately. The Auschwitz complex also featured several libraries, a soccer stadium, theaters, swimming pools, and even a brothel. A brothel.
Why? It's not like people could use them.
Well, it's for the Schutzstaffel and not the prisoners.
Obviously.
But, you know, it's pesky Schutzstaffel. Dr. Mengele would move forward with his new position as chief physician at the top of the ramp, where the cattle cars jam-packed full of people would arrive at Auschwitz-Birkenau, and it is also here that he would earn the nickname the Angel of Death. As the train car doors opened, countless frightened, starving, dehydrated, exhausted, and confused men, women, and children spilled out onto the cold, stony ground to be met by Dr. Mengele and a group of physicians who were there to decide their fate with a quick physical examination. While many of the doctors tasked with the responsibility of the selection process really didn't enjoy it very much, Mengele would sometimes show up to perform this task even when he was not on duty, always with a pressed and neat uniform. And he would wear like his white lab coat type thing, you know.
So he's a psychopath.
He's an angel of death. So he'd wear his big white lab coat, stand in front of the people.
He enjoys sending people to
He
death.
would show up on his days off. He would take over shifts for guys who didn't want to, you know, do that day they were supposed to. And saw in many sources he usually had some type of smirk on his face. So you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. And he was not working. You get what I'm saying? He enjoyed this.
Yeah, I got that.
According to In the Matter of Josef Mengele, a report prepared by the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Special Investigations in 1992, quote, in a grotesque perversion of the physician's role, Auschwitz's so-called Angel of Death employed his knowledge of the workings of life in order to destroy it. He determined who would die immediately in the gas chambers of Auschwitz and who would be exploited for labor or Nazi science before being killed. So those who were ordered to the right, the able-bodied individuals fit enough to handle physical work, were to be sent to perform slave labor, while a select few would be chosen for medical experimentation. Those ordered to the left, the sick, elderly, disabled, or otherwise deemed unfit for work, were to be sent directly to the gas chambers and crematoria. During one selection process, a middle-aged mother who had been pointed to the right to perform work was separated from her 14-year-old daughter, who was pointed to her death. As a guard tried to pull them apart to carry on with the process, the guard was scratched in the face and he backed away. In stepped Dr. Mengele to resolve the dispute by simply shooting and killing both the mother and her daughter. After that, the rest of the selection process was immediately cut short, and the remaining people awaiting their fate were all ordered to be killed. So, mom's trying to hold on to her daughter, and homeboy just steps in, kills them both, and then just says, fuck it, everyone's going to the gas chamber.
I hate all these people.
That's good. I didn't mean to say like, that's good.
Like German?
Listen, I've been reading a lot of things and watching things, so... And I love Rammstein. Anyway, Dr. Olga Lengyel, a prisoner at Auschwitz, reported that Mengele would supervise a pregnant mother giving birth at the camp with meticulous care before sending them both to the gas chamber less than an hour later. Dr. Gisela Perl, a Hungarian Jewish gynecologist, described the moments following a killing at the hands of Dr. Mengele, saying, "He took a piece of perfumed soap out of his bag and, whistling gaily, with a smile of deep satisfaction on his face, he began to wash his hands."
He's a literal crazy person.
Another witness described how Dr. Mengele once tore an infant from the womb of its mother and immediately tossed it into an oven, because to his dismay it was not a twin.
Jesus Christ, dude.
His laboratory walls were also reportedly decorated with human eyes pinned to them, like you would pin butterflies.
Yeah, I understand.
Dr. Mengele was mainly fascinated by those with dwarfism, heterochromia, 2 different colored eyes, and various other physical abnormalities. And most famous
was twins?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Call back to Dr. von Verschier. One of the experiments he performed on those with 2 different colored eyes included injecting the eye, via needle of course, with chemicals in an effort to try and change the color of the iris, which would result in a whole buttload of pain and temporary or permanent blindness. Once he felt that he took that test far enough, he would either have them killed or do it himself by using a type of lethal injection so their organs could be used for further testing and their skeletons preserved for research. So he would keep their skeletons for research.
I'm just hoping at the end this guy gets what's coming to him.
Well, can you just remember skeletons preserved for research?
I mean, it's hard to forget.
Okay. Another example of his experiments included removing the subject's organs without any form of anesthesia before immediately sending them back to work without painkillers of any kind.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. During the selection process on the train ramp, Mengele was sure to keep an eye out for any pairs of identical twins. While it is reported that one pair of twins selected by Dr. Mengele was nearly 70 years old, most of the other pairs spotted were children. The sets of twins plucked from the crowd were spared from the gas chambers and physical labor, and were at first treated differently, dare I say better, than regular prisoners. Their hair was not shaved off of their heads, they were fed better, and they were allowed to wear their own clothing instead of the standard issue striped uniforms as the others. Mengele favored twins because, due to his history with studying genetics, they shared the same genes. Because they're twins.
Yeah.
Right? He viewed twins as perfect test subjects, as he could experiment on one while the other acted as the control subject to compare his findings. The twins were taken to the twins' barracks and were to fill out paperwork that asked for basic history and measurements, like age, height, probably your birthplace, shit like that. Once the paperwork was complete, they were sent to Dr. Mengele. Now, some witnesses, including Jewish doctors forced into working as his assistants, say that Dr. Mengele wasn't all bad all the time.
He sounds pretty fucked up.
In fact, he was kind to most of his test subjects.
Yeah? When he is putting chemicals in their eyes and blinding them? Or are we talking about when he's taking out their body parts and sending them back to work? Which part? Which part was he kind at?
How about at 6 a.m. roll call?
I'm, like, about to fight this person that just said that.
Okay. Each day at 6 a.m., there was a roll call for the twins before they were treated to a breakfast, while Mengele would arrive for inspection. And the children weren't particularly afraid of him. He would often bring them sweets, chocolates, talk to them, ask them how they're doing.
Yeah, he's probably just buttering them up for some horrible thing he's going to do to them.
He would play with them, probably give them a little hair tussle and be like, how are you doing today?
I'd be like, I'm in prison. How do you think I'm doing?
How are you doing today, Hans?
And then you flip him off and say, fuck you.
Yeah. Some of the younger children would even call him Uncle Mengele.
Oh my god, no.
Hello, Unky Menge?
No, stop.
Unky Menge?
I don't know what you're doing.
Unky Mengele. Uncle. Okay. The twins were also allowed to play soccer. They were spared from punishments and taught in makeshift school classes and were treated better than most until they were taken away for experimentation.
Oh, yeah, until then.
Well, like I just said, I mean, he was cool to them before he did things to them, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what did he do to them?
Well, you've heard the old myth that twins can feel each other's pain, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he wanted to put that to the test himself. Yeah. Duh. He's a doctor.
Obviously.
Duh. Hello. He would meticulously take notes on each set of twins. They would be stripped naked and laid next to each other to measure their bodies and various features, sometimes for hours. These measurements would sometimes occur several times a week for months at a time, in addition to taking photos of them for documentation. He would inflict pain on one to find out if the other was able to feel the same pain, such as injecting one with a substance to monitor the resulting illness, applying clamps to their limbs to induce gangrene, and injecting their hearts with chloroform for the purpose of dissection. So, he would intentionally kill them to dissect them.
Mm-hmm.
Surgeries and amputations would be performed without anesthesia, even castrations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what castrations is?
I know what that is, yes.
Do you know what is it?
Are you serious?
I mean, no. Unless you want to say it.
No, I don't.
All right, yeah. Google it yourself. Do your own research. In case you don't know what castration is. Anyway. An account from Helmut Clemens, a prisoner acting as Dr. Mengele's personal messenger in his laboratory, located in Barrack 32, recalled, I was also with Mengele when he picked out his twins for experiments. I had to bring the twins to him. He assigned them special numbers. He always sent me out of the room when he experimented. I wasn't allowed to stay. But once I was accidentally in the room and saw how he put some sort of fluid in the eyes of the children and saw how their eyes got larger and larger. Several days later, I saw the same children in the corpse hall.
But he's not all bad all the time.
Again, before he did these things, so the kids trusted him, so he could do whatever he wanted. So basically, I don't know, he's like a child molester also. He's the OG groomer.
He's making me very angry.
Yeah. Well.
Hope he gets all his organs cut out without anesthesia.
One set of Roma twins was suspected of being infected with tuberculosis because, tuberculosis was a big deal back in the day.
Good, I hope they coughed right in his mouth.
Well, maybe. Being the scholar that he was, he injected both of them with chloroform and dissected them, as I just mentioned a minute ago, to look for any trace of the disease in either of them. He found no trace, as neither of them actually had it.
Figures.
Witness Vera Alexander described that Mengele once attempted to create conjoined twins by sewing them together.
Yeah, I don't... I don't even know how to respond.
So he sewed them together back to back. After suffering for several days afterwards with gangrene, the children died. In case you didn't know by now, Dr. Mengele was by no means a gynecologist. But he would also experiment on pregnant women. He would infect the mother with typhoid to determine whether or not the baby would be born with the infection. Another mother, Ruth Elias, stated, "I delivered a beautiful big blonde girl, but Mengele ordered that my breast be bound so that, as he said, we can see how long a newborn baby can survive without food. The baby suffered for several days before being put to death by a doctor with an overdose of morphine to end the child's pain."
I think we should starve him to death. See how long he lasts.
Well...
And take all his organs out. And put things in his eyeballs.
Yeah, go for it.
I would love to.
Okay. Let's do it. Josef Mengele's reign of medical terror at Auschwitz would come to an end in early 1945 as the Soviets approached Poland from the east and eventually liberated Auschwitz on January 27th, 1945. As most higher-ranking Nazis did when faced with possible capture...
He ran away like a bitch.
Well, first he gathered all of his records that he could of his experiments on the prisoners and then ran for the hills as his comrades destroyed other evidence at the camp before doing the same. So like, we are going to take over the world. And then someone's like, I'm going to get you. And he's like, oh no. And then they run away. These little bitch boys. Little bitch boy Nazis, you know? Mm-hmm. As Mengele swapped his SS uniform for a Wehrmacht officer's uniform, Wehrmacht was just the regular German army, by the way. He joined a group of Wehrmacht soldiers before American troops arrested him 400 miles west of Auschwitz in Weiden, Germany, and held him as a POW for 2 months.
Yeah, but they probably didn't do half the things he did to other people.
What?
Because he's a prisoner of war, but I doubt he was treated the same way he treated other people.
Yeah, but... So, he's under American custody. They got him. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. No. Mengele was released from custody because the Americans failed to ID him as the same Josef Mengele wanted for mass murder and other crimes. Do you want to know why?
I mean, it just sounds about right.
Well, yeah. So, do you want to know why, though? They couldn't confirm it was him? Because he didn't get a tattoo.
Because he didn't get a tattoo?
He didn't get a tattoo.
They don't have, like, a photo?
Well...
They can't take his fingerprints?
Because back when people joined the SS, they were to have a blood type tattoo on the underside of their left arm upon their acceptance. So, like, blood type tattoo, meaning what their blood type is, in the event that they needed, like, an emergency blood transfusion or something like that. So since he never got one of these tattoos, they weren't able to prove that he was in the SS or the same Josef Mengele. Mm-hmm. So he was released. Mm-hmm. So the Angel of Death spread his shitty little wings and fled to South America. More specifically, he bounced around Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. He lived under a couple aliases such as Fritz Ullmann, Wolfgang Gerhard, Helmut Gregor, Dr. Fausto Rindon, and the dumbest of all, Jose Mengele. Which, in case you've never heard Spanish before, Jose is Joseph.
The same thing, yeah.
Well, Joseph, you know.
Stupid.
Jose Mengele. Very good. So many years later, in 1976, he had suffered a stroke, experienced high blood pressure, and an ear infection that affected his balance. So he's starting to get some health issues here. Maybe his career of sewing children together is catching up. So in February of 1979, a few years later, Josef Mengele was visiting friends in Bertioga, Brazil, and decided to go for a dip. He's, it's Brazil. He's like, I'm going to go to the swimming pool. Mm-hmm. It is toasty out here. I need to swim in the pool. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he sounded like, really. While doing so he's backstroking, fucking, doggy paddling, whatever the fuck. Maybe he had a fucking floaty?
Yeah.
I don't know. But either way, while he was swimming, he suffered another stroke and he drowned.
Good.
The angel of death himself is dead.
Except I wish it was more painful.
Yeah.
Like a shark bit his arm off.
Or just fucking...
Or one of those weird things went up your pee hole.
Yeah. Right in the pee hole.
And then somebody hit him in the eye with an ice pick.
Yeah. What else?
I don't know. I'll think of something.
Okay. The angel of death is dead at age 67 and was buried under his alias Wolfgang Gerhard. So again, he's 67 in 1979. So he was born in 1911.
So you're telling me from 1945 to 1979 they couldn't arrest this guy?
It was a whole thing. You can look into it. There's a million. If I try to get every bit of info, we'd be here for days. So there's a whole thing after he fled to South America, but I didn't really feel like it was important to this story that we're telling right now. But there's a lot more stuff out there about his time in Argentina and whatnot. Okay, yeah. So while he was at Auschwitz and stuff, he's like in his 30s, right? Yeah. So he was around our age right now when he was doing all these experiments. What do you think about that?
I already told you how I feel about it.
Several years later, in 1985, his body was exhumed and, ironically, examined. Upon inspection of the skull, American forensic scientist Lowell Levine declared there was absolutely no doubt at all that this is Josef Mengele. So they, compared it with photos of his face and stuff, like the skull and this and that.
We looked at photos of him to determine if it was really him? Interesting.
Oh, yeah. After years of studying and performing experiments on helpless children and vulnerable adults, the angel of death, Josef Mengele's skeleton, is now used as an educational tool at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. So remember what I said earlier? Mm-hmm. When he dissected the kids and did that and this to save their skeletons to,
Yeah.
Now they're using his in Brazil as a teaching tool.
Listen, I feel like that thing is, tainted. I'll burn that thing.
Well, maybe.
I feel like it's evil.
Well, I'm sure it is. One of the most well-known survivors of the twin experiments is Ava Kaur, who was the subject of the 2006 documentary Forgiving Dr. Mengele, as well as a YouTube video that went viral, posted by BuzzFeed in 2018, titled, I Survived the Holocaust Twin Experiments. As of this recording, I checked it yesterday when I watched it again, it has 23 million views. She has also co-authored 6 books and was involved in many memorial services and remembrance projects. So, yeah, that video where she's talking about it herself and her experience with that and everything, I'm not really gonna tell you much about that because it's only 15 minutes. So if you're interested to hear what she has to say about it, go watch it. It's 15 minutes.
So I assume she survived while her twin died.
Ava Moses and her sister Miriam were born on January 30th, 1934 in Romania. They were transported for a total of 70 hours by train without food or water before they eventually arrived at Auschwitz and walked into the selection process. Ava Kaur recalled what had happened once they arrived. She says, when the doors to our cattle car opened, I heard SS soldiers yelling, Schnell, Schnell, which means quick, and ordering everybody out. My mother grabbed Miriam and me by the hand. She was always trying to protect us because we were the youngest. Everything was moving very fast, and as I looked around, I noticed my father and my 2 older sisters were gone. As I clutched my mother's hand, an SS man hurried by shouting, Twins! Twins! He stopped to look at us. Miriam and I looked very much alike. Are they twins? He asked my mother. Is that good? She replied. He nodded yes. They are twins, she said. Once the SS guard knew that we were twins, Miriam and I were taken away from our mother without any warning or explanation. Our screams fell on deaf ears. I remember looking back and seeing my mother's arms stretched out in despair as we were led away by a soldier. That was the last time I saw her. Ava passed away on July 4th, 2019, at age 85, and Miriam passed away back in 1993 from kidney-related cancer, which I'll let you know, the one part of the video she mentioned, it's because of the experiments on them.
She got cancer.
Because he injected something into her sister's kidneys. So when they were children, she said her kidneys just never grew up with the rest of her. So she had like a child-sized kidneys in her body until she died.
Her sister survived. Both of them did.
Yeah, they survived the camp, but her sister died in 1993, and she recently died a few years ago in 2019. Which is kind of ironic here, I saw, because in the video she mentioned that her sister died on June 6th. Are you familiar with June 6th in relation to World War II?
No.
It's D-Day.
Oh.
When they stormed the beach at Normandy, the USA got over there. And then Ava here passed away on July 4th.
Oh.
So I thought that was kind of...
interesting?
Yeah. So, that's where I'll leave that for now. There's, like I said, there's plenty of documentaries, movies, books, shit like that, but if I were to try to find every bit of, like, witness statements or anything like that, we'd be here for days. But, Slayer wrote a song about him.
No.
It's called Angel of Death. It's possibly their most popular song, besides Raining Blood.
I don't listen to Slayer.
Well, that's your problem. So I know that you don't do that, so let me read you a sample of the lyrics. There's a lot of them, but I just picked this small section. Sadistic, surgeon of demise, sadist of the noblest blood, destroying without mercy to benefit the Aryan race, surgery with no anesthesia. Feel the knife pierce you intensely. Inferior, no use to mankind. Strapped down, screaming out to die. Angel of death, monarch to the kingdom of the dead. Infamous butcher, angel of death. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
So that's what I got for Josef Mengele.
That demon.
And I learned a bunch of cool German words, like Schutzstaffel.
Whatever happened to his wife?
She divorced him.
And his child.
His son wants nothing to do with him.
Good.
Because when they, what's the word? When they dug up his body, his son wanted nothing to do with it. Like his family wouldn't take the remains back. So that's why he was donated to that school in Brazil. To be used as like a medical tool or whatever. It's like they would study his skull and like there's a hole in his skull from they said it was either water dripping down a screw in the coffin that eventually like wore away the bone, or just an actual screw went through his face like after he was dead. But it was also mentioned that the skeleton had a fractured pelvis. And that aligned with it being him because he was in a motorcycle accident in Auschwitz years before that. So again, the guy who did all these experiments on kids and all these other people was eventually kind of experimented on himself. Just not as harshly or terribly.
Well, I think it should have been harshly and terribly.
Yeah, should have. So that's that. But again, he started off with, like, actually being scientific, and then he fell more...
Yeah, but you don't just become, like, an evil person like that. I feel like that's just in you as a person. He's not bad all the time, except for when he's stabbing kids in the heart and amputating their limbs and taking out their organs. But he's not bad all the time.
Give me a break. He brought them chocolates.
Give me a break.
He brought them little German chocolates. He's like, here, Gunther, would you like a chocolate?
Well, obviously this episode made me very angry.
Yeah. Just very angry. Would you like a chocolate?
No.
Gunther, come here, have your chocolates. Do you want to play soccer?
Alright, well, that's it for us this week.
I always keep forgetting to mention the Twitter, and the Instagram. Is Dead Spot Pod. All one word. Danke for listening again. And das ist gut. Ja?
Okay, we'll see you next week.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.